Let me ask you something honestly. When your salary hits your account at the end of the month, how long does it actually feel like money? Maybe a week, maybe 10 days if you're being careful. And then, slowly and quietly, it's gone again. Bills, subscriptions, groceries, a dinner you didn't plan for, an impulse you justified. And by day 25, you're already watching the calendar, waiting for the next one. If that sounds familiar, I want you to know something important. This isn't a story about being irresponsible. It's not about bad habits or weak willpower. The people living this cycle aren't living it because they're careless. Most of them are actually working quite hard. The problem is something quieter than that, and that's what this video is about. Let's follow someone for a moment. We'll call him Daniel. Daniel is 29. He lives in a mid-sized European city, Amsterdam. He has a decent job in marketing. After taxes and social contributions, he takes home around 2,800 euros a month. In the United States, this maps closely to someone earning roughly $3,200 a month after taxes in a city like Denver or Portland. Solid, but not extravagant. Daniel rents a one-bedroom apartment on his own. 950 euros a month. That's 34% of his income gone on the first of the month. He has a car loan, 280 euros. He needed the car for a previous job, and now it's just part of life. He barely thinks about it. He has a student loan from his university years, 190 euros a month. That one will follow him for another 6 years. He has 2 credit cards, not maxed out, but carrying a combined balance of around 2,400 euros. Minimum payments together come to about 90 euros. He pays those and tells himself he'll deal with the rest later. Then there's life. Gym membership, 45 euros, streaming services, cloud storage, various subscriptions scattered across his statements, around 60 euros total. Groceries, 350 euros, phone plan, 40 euros, commuting, 80 euros, social life, dinners, a birthday here, a weekend trip planned with friends there, roughly 300 euros averaged across the year. Add it all up, and Daniel is spending almost exactly what he earns. Every single month. He's not reckless. He doesn't buy designer clothes. He doesn't take luxury holidays. He's not gambling. He's just living a fairly normal, modern life. And yet, he has almost nothing saved. No emergency fund, no investments. Just a feeling, quiet but persistent, that something isn't quite right. Here's the thing that most financial content gets wrong about Daniel's situation. They'll look at his budget and say, cut the subscriptions, cook more, stop the gym. And yes, technically some of that is true, but those suggestions miss the actual problem. The real issue isn't any single expense. It's the structure of the life Daniel built. Daniel didn't make one bad decision, he made a series of reasonable decisions, one at a time, each of which made sense in the moment. The apartment made sense, he wanted his own space. The car made sense, he needed it then. The credit card balance made sense, it was a temporary solution that never got resolved. Each social event made sense, you can't just disappear from your own life. But when you add a dozen reasonable decisions together, you can end up with an unreasonable result. This is sometimes called lifestyle lock-in. It's the point where your monthly obligations, all the commitments you've signed, all the recurring costs humming in the background, consume so much of your income that there's structurally no room left. Even if you wanted to save, there's simply nothing left to save with. And unlike a spending problem, which you can fix with discipline, a structural problem requires a different kind of thinking entirely. Let's be precise about this. Daniel earns 2,800 euros a month. His fixed, unavoidable obligations, rent, loan repayments, credit card minimums, phone, total around 1,550 euros. That's 55% of his income already allocated before the month even begins. The remaining 1,250 euros needs to cover everything else: food, transport, social life, clothing, personal care, and ideally some savings. Now here's where the math turns uncomfortable. If Daniel continues on this path, zero savings, a credit card balance quietly accumulating interest, what happens over the next decade? The credit card balance, at a typical European or American interest rate of 17 to 22%, costs him somewhere between 400 and 500 euros a year in pure interest. money that leaves his account and buys him absolutely nothing in return. Over 10 years, that's around 4,500 euros. Not spent on experiences or necessities, just paid to a financial institution as the cost of carrying a balance. And the opportunity cost is the other side of that equation. If Daniel had taken the same 400 euros a year, just the interest cost, and invested it instead in a broad index fund returning an average of 7% annually, he'd have roughly 5,800 euros after 10 years. From money that was already leaving his account anyway. That's not a lecture about investing. That's just showing you the difference between money that moves toward you and money that quietly moves away from you. Most people living paycheck to paycheck have far more of the second type than they realize. So, if the math is this clear, why don't people like Daniel fix it? This is where it gets more interesting than a spreadsheet. The first thing to understand is that Daniel doesn't see himself as struggling. He sees himself as normal. Because by the standards of the people around him, his colleagues, his friends, his social circle, he is. Everyone rents at similar prices. Everyone has a car payment. Everyone carries some credit card balance. When the average person around you is doing something, your brain stops flagging it as a problem. There's a term for this in behavioral economics, the reference group effect. We calibrate our financial decisions not against what's mathematically optimal, but against what the people we identify with are doing. When your reference group is living paycheck to paycheck, it feels normal, even responsible. The second layer is social. Daniel's 300 euro monthly social spending isn't really about restaurants or weekend trips. It's about belonging. It's about not being the person who always says no. It's about not feeling like you're falling behind, not just financially, but relationally. That feeling, the one where declining a dinner feels like a kind of failure, is extraordinarily powerful. More powerful often than the abstract knowledge that you should be saving. You can know the math and still feel the pull, and in the moment, social comfort almost always wins. The third layer is avoidance. Daniel doesn't open a spreadsheet and look at his numbers because somewhere beneath the surface he already suspects the picture isn't good. And there's a strange psychological comfort in not confirming a fear. As long as you haven't looked directly at it, you maintain a kind of plausible uncertainty. The problem exists, but it also doesn't, in that quiet space where you never quite examine it. Here is what happens if nothing changes. Daniel reaches 35. He's earning a little more now, maybe 3,200 euros a month, but his lifestyle has adjusted to match. A slightly nicer apartment, a slightly newer car. The credit card balance is still there, maybe a little larger after a few difficult months. Still not saving in any meaningful way. By 40, he starts to feel the pressure more sharply. His peers, some of them, have started pulling ahead, not dramatically, but visibly. Some have bought properties, some have investment accounts, some just seem to have options. Daniel doesn't have options exactly. He has obligations, and options and obligations are not the same thing. The most uncomfortable outcome of a paycheck-to-paycheck life isn't poverty, it's dependence. It's the inability to make a different choice, to leave a job that isn't right for you, to take a career risk, to handle an unexpected medical cost or a broken appliance without immediate anxiety. It's the slow, quiet narrowing of your life's flexibility. Financial stress, sustained over years, also compounds in ways that go well beyond money. It affects how you sleep, how you make decisions, your sense of control over your own future. These aren't abstract concerns. The people who break out of this pattern, genuinely and sustainably, don't usually do it by becoming more disciplined about small purchases. They do it by changing the frame. The shift is from thinking about money in monthly terms, what's coming in, what's going out, to thinking about it in terms of structural direction. Am I building something, or am I just maintaining something? Maintenance is necessary. You have to pay rent, you have to eat, you have to participate in your own life. But maintenance alone, indefinitely, produces no movement. The people who handle this well tend to treat their savings the way most people treat their rent, as a non-negotiable first commitment made before anything else. Not what's left over at the end of the month, because there often isn't anything left, but a deliberate, pre-committed amount that leaves the account before the lifestyle spending begins. They also tend to be fairly indifferent to the visible markers of financial progress. They're not particularly interested in appearing prosperous. They're more interested in becoming stable. That's a quieter motivation and a far more durable one. And critically, they're willing to hold their current lifestyle fixed or reduce it temporarily while their financial structure catches up. This is the part that sounds obvious, but is actually quite rare, because the pressure to keep up with your reference group doesn't stop. It continues, month after month. Resisting it requires a specific kind of clarity about what you're actually building toward. Here's where I want to leave you. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You don't need to move to a cheaper city, stop seeing your friends, or live on nothing. That's not what this is about. What this is about is clarity. Most people living paycheck to paycheck are not failing. They're responding rationally to the environment they've built and the social pressures they're navigating. The problem isn't character. The problem is that no one ever showed them clearly what the structure of their financial life actually looks like and what it's quietly costing them. Once you see that clearly, things begin to shift, not because of discipline or willpower or motivation, but because real awareness changes how decisions feel. You stop spending unconsciously. You start making choices with the full picture in mind. 6 months is enough time to meaningfully change the structure of your financial life. Not to become wealthy, that's a longer story, but to stop the slow, invisible drain. To start building instead of just maintaining. To give yourself, gradually and seriously, more options. That's worth doing, quietly, calmly, and without drama. If this kind of thinking is useful to you, consider subscribing. There's more content like this coming. Calm, grounded, and focused on how money actually works in real lives. No hype, just clarity.